Hello and welcome to the Bluffton Center for Entrepreneurs program on websites. Where do I begin? I am here this evening with Dave Treat of Thinking Small, a Lima-based web design company, and we are going to walk through all the basics of what you need to do, whether you are creating your first website or whether you are replacing one that is ready for an update, because like everything technological, websites don't last forever, or you may find that what you were happy starting out with, maybe it's one you made yourself, that maybe you're just not, it's not working for you anymore, and it's time to do something different. So if I can manage here, I have to tell you, I've technologically challenged this week. My phone is strapped to my computer because I left my charge cord in Michigan. So I'm going to go here and switch. I'm going to switch to the group view here. I'm here with my guests, including Dave Treat. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Great to see you. So Dave, what do you think is the hottest topic? Where would you like to start with this conversation?
Wow, it's a big conversation because it can be fairly convoluted, and the old web industry has kind of been disrupted by some of the social media. But the fact is, it all has to work together, and some people are very quick to use Google. And so Google has become very important, Bing less so, but primarily Google to find what they're looking for. And so that's a consideration. People are very limited in their time, and they have the attention span of kindergartners and admirals. They say you have 8 to 10 seconds to actually grab someone's attention when they visit your site. So one of the first things you have to do is be very clear about what you do, because if you can't explain it in 8 to 10 seconds, you will probably lose whoever showed up on your site. Now, they may have learned about you through a Facebook post or through a friend that said, hey, you've got to check these people out, go look at them. But when they come to your site, you have just seconds to grab their attention and try to keep them. And so one of the first things I tell people is, be clear about what it is you do, because you need a statement right on the top of your website that says, this is what we do. Had a guy that I follow that said, you have to remember, though, that you are not the hero of their story. You're Yoda. You are the hero. So you are there to, the customer is the hero. And you want to prove to them that you can help them with whatever they have in mind. So if it's a product they're looking for, you need to position yourself as the one that can solve that problem for them. And so that's where that statement comes in. What's now called social proof is very important, and we'll talk about this more later. We used to just call them testimonials. And back in the old day, it's what you would have stuck, Tom, this is something you would have stuck in your newspaper ad. It's a testimonial saying, hey, we had this problem and this particular person came along and helped us with it. And now our problem has been solved. That's the kind of thing that we used to do in testimonials. Now it is so important, so critical, that we actually call it social proof. So one of the first things they need to see on your site is proof that you know what you're doing, that you are Yoda. To whatever their problem is, you are the person that will have some answers for them, can help them achieve their goals. So that's pretty important.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to interject. I'm pretty much assuming that everyone here is convinced that they need a website. And it's just that taking that step can feel like a really big one. So sure. I guess what I would have liked to ask on their behalf is, what does the customer need to bring to a web designer?
Okay, so the first thing is, what we talked about, it's what you do. You got to be able to explain in 5 seconds what it is that you do. Now, sometimes that's just a statement, and every web page should have a statement that's right up front that clarifies what you do, so they know when they're in the right place. The second thing would be photos, or even better, videos of what you do. Research is showing that videos are much more effective than sheer photos. But I'm amazed at how many people will have a picture of themselves or a picture of their building. Unless you're selling buildings, that's not the most important thing. What are you selling? And often it's expertise, and so it's important to have that. But to show something visually, because so many people are visual, that they see what you do. I have a client that I've started working with up in Findlay, and they do car detailing. And I said, don't you have some before and after pictures? Yeah, we've been meaning to do that. And, well, you need to get some up there. And they finally got some where they'd show what a car looked like when it came in. And then they showed what it looked like when it went out the door. And it was instantly, you say, now I know what she does. I know what she might be charging me for, but that's what I need. And it was just that quick. So photos and videos, even better, if you have them, of what you do, showing before and after, and then the testimonials, the social proof. And now, if you have a Facebook page, you probably have been collecting some testimonials off that Facebook page. But sometimes especially if you're in a startup, you would have to go ask someone to say, when we did this for you with our product, could you talk about that a little bit and say, what was good about it, or how we solved the problem for you? And you've got to collect those up front and go to a web designer. And depending on whether or not you already have a logo, that's branding. Your branding is very important. It's one of the first ways people are going to recognize you when they see you. Your branding on Facebook needs to match the branding on the website. So you've got to have a logo in place. If you go to the right designer, that would be me. I can do a logo for you. If you don't already have one. And some of them are very simple. I like simple more than complicated. I have a friend who's also a designer that does very complex logos. I mean, if your product was War and Peace, he could do a logo for that, and it would include everything in the book. So you have to decide what it is that's important for your client to see, and make sure that your branding matches that. And let me throw one other thing at that. We've talked about Facebook and the website. And I like to explain to clients that this is like having a pitcher and a catcher on a baseball team. You can't have one without the other. Facebook is what I would call enhanced word of mouth. These are people that you generally know, and you're telling them about your business and what's important about your business, and hoping that they will think of someone else that they could send that to, or if they really like you, they'll just share it to the world on their Facebook page. And now you've suddenly got exposure that you might not have had before. Now, how much did that cost you? Nothing. You post stuff up on Facebook, it gets shared around. And some of my most successful businesses, I'll do Facebook posts for them, 2 or 3 a week. There's a pizza place up in Findlay called Heavenly Pizza, and we've taken over their social media. And that drives traffic then to the website. And the website is where they can actually see a menu, order product. They see how it's made because they have videos and photos there. But that's how Facebook and a website work together. So the web page is kind of set up as the catcher that will turn interest into sales, hopefully. And using Facebook or other social media, Twitter, Instagram, that's a way of getting the word out, in addition to any other advertising that you might be doing.
Right. I think that people can forget how Facebook works, that you may see your Facebook as this continuity. I did this, I posted this, but your customer, they might only see a few of those, and so your website is the one place that has all the continuity. It's not missing any of those pieces. Sure. That can sort of disappear on Facebook.
Yep. One of the taglines that we use is that we are, the name of my business is Thinking Small, and you must be wondering where that came from. I used to be a small group director at churches, and I learned that there aren't very many problems that can't be solved by making them smaller. And so for small businesses, we always think about what is the simplest way that you can portray this idea. And in fact, that's one of the comments I get is, wow, your websites are so clean and simple, and they're not muddled with detail. Well, it's kind of strategically the way we do it. So we talk about web strategies for small business, and that web strategy is going to include thinking through, what is the history of our business? How did we get here? Do we have we been doing this for a while, or did we start last week? Those things are important, and you can tell that story on the website. So it's having that strategy of knowing where we're going to put certain things. Facebook has a place to put photos, but unless you're really interested in something, you're probably not going to go browsing through those. What Facebook is good for is generating interest. So if you can come up with posts that are compelling and shareable, let me give you an example. Every website that we do has what's called an open graph image. Now, you've probably never heard of Open Graph, but when you're on Facebook and you share a website, you will either get a well thought through, prepared image that is specifically for that purpose. That's called an Open Graph image. And you have to code it in a certain way so that that comes up, and not some random photo. You've probably done this. You're on Facebook and you'll say, hey, have you ever seen this website? And some random picture or ad will come up. It's because they haven't specified an Open Graph image. So it's real important to make sure you have that so that your web page and Facebook will actually match as far as branding is concerned.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you talked about the storytelling aspect of a website, because when I go to a website and it's all clip art and I don't know, are they on the moon? Are they, it's like, okay, maybe I don't feel like I'm going to trust that company because they're just generic vanilla. I don't I feel like I've gotten to know them.
Yeah. Well, and that, in fact, is one of the reasons why you want to hire somebody that's, this isn't their first rodeo. They've been around the block a little bit. Now, I will use icons sometime. You've probably heard of Tawa Tree. We did their website, and we used 3 icons to kind of break down what they do into 3 separate areas. We also did the branding and website for Flag City Carts. If you've heard of them up in Findlay, they're only about a year old, but they give rides downtown on golf carts, and there's no charge. You just tip the driver. But we used icons for them as well, but they were very carefully thought through. And it wasn't just, in my case, it wasn't just clip art that we found. We actually have a supplier that had some icons that really pointed out what it was we were trying to say. Mm-hmm. But you can usually tell when something has been strategically designed versus just, picked out of a library of images. Mm-hmm. That's where there are some services, Wix and Weebly, Squarespace, others, that are basically what we call drag and drop. In other words, you're able to find something you like, drag it over to your page, and it will kind of stay there. That is one way of doing it, and it does help visually let people see what you're doing, but it really doesn't tell a story. It generally doesn't tell a story, I should say. That's up to you to craft, and that's what will keep people interested and hopefully let you convert them into a sale.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk a little bit about after the website is built, because I think nobody really likes to think about maybe the day that somebody clicks on your website and it's not there. If you hire someone who just knows how to use a website builder, I think the next question is, do they know how to help you through the lifetime of that website?
Yeah, sure. This is probably a good time to talk about design versus hosting. So you see ads all the time for like GoDaddy. and they talk about web hosting. So there are three things. There's your domain,
Mm.
which is where you go. So it's, joeschmatz.com. There's your domain. But that doesn't get you hosting, and it doesn't get you a website. The next thing is designing the site so it tells the story that we want to tell. And then the third thing is hosting. And so even in my work, I'm billing for three different things. The branding and the domain are one thing that you take care of up front. The design is something that's usually good for a period of time. You want to keep changing it because Google likes that. They don't like it when a site just sits and never changes. But for the most part, designing a website takes place once and then you tweak it from there. But then the last thing is hosting. And hosting is like paying rent to live on the web. That's the best way to think of it. That site has to go somewhere. It has to sit on a computer somewhere. And it's generally up in the cloud. I don't even know where the computers are that store my sites, because I hire someone to let me put my sites there. And then I watch it. I make sure there are no problems with it. There are certain legal things you have to do periodically to make sure that you're in compliance. You want to keep changing things up because Google likes it when they see the site changing. And so that long-term relationship with your designer or with your maintenance person is important. We have one client, I mentioned Tawa earlier. Every month we change their front page. We put up something that they would like to feature for the month, and we put up photos that explain that, but it's a matter of changing it so that Google sees you're not just letting that site sit.
Mhm.
And if you go to a site and it says copyright 2013, like I just did this week, that proves that you're not paying attention. And the client's going to think, are they going to pay attention to me when I need something? So those are little things. A good designer and a good host will know what Google cares about. And frankly, we're all bowing down to Google these days, because you can't get listed in Google unless your site complies with certain things. Your images have to fit within a certain space, depending on what the user is on. Google has a mobile first philosophy. In other words, your mobile image is the most important thing. So what people are going to see when they hold their phone up like this, that's the most important thing to Google. I don't know what message is on there. Or if they turn the phone like this, they're going to need a completely different layout. If they're on an iPad, that's a different layout. So your designer needs to keep all those things in mind, as well as the speed of loading. It's amazing how important speed is to Google. If it takes more than so many milliseconds to load a page when someone comes to visit, and you've been there, and you watch the photos come in and very slowly, especially if you remember the old dial-up days, they're very slow. Well, Google
Yeah.
rates you down for that, and is less likely to show your web page on their page of results.
Let's talk about another thing that I have noticed very recently, and you very nicely reminded me of it. When you go to a website that maybe you've been to hundreds or thousands of times, and it says, this isn't a safe website. Go back. What's that? And what should I do about it?
So many sites that have been around for a while, you address them, and you've seen the letters HTTP : / that tells your browser we're visiting a website, as opposed to pulling a file from a computer somewhere. It says you're finding a website using HTTP, which is, nobody cares, but it stands for Hypertext Transport Protocol. You've probably seen that some sites have an S on the end, so it says HTTPS. That means that site is secured, and they have a security certificate that they have paid for that proves they are who they say they are. So if you go to a site that does not have the S after the HTTP, it's an insecure site, and more your browsers like Chrome or Firefox, Safari, Edge, when they see that it's an HTTP connection and it doesn't have the S, it's going to warn you, this site may not be who they say they are. And you may think it's AAA, but it's not AAA that you just visited. And the only way to know that is with that secure connection. So we purchase a security certificate for each of our clients, and that gives them that HTTPS, and it can expire. If it's of a certain age, it can expire and go away, and that way you need somebody to come in and say, no, we can do that for you. Now, if you're with GoDaddy or somebody like that, they will help you understand that, and that's a way they can upcharge you a little bit, pay a little more for a secure connection, but anymore, it's absolutely necessary. Otherwise, your clients will see that, hey, this site is not safe, and run away. Well, you don't want your clients doing that, so you need to make sure it's a secure connection.
Right. And then we just have one more sort of the basics that we wanted to cover before we, just go into a general conversation. And that is Google search results. Can I be number one? Tell me a little bit about how that works.
Okay, so the old saying is the best place to hide a body is on page 2 of Google search results, because nobody goes there. People go to page 1 and they're going to pick the first ones at the top. If you're like me, I skip over all the ads. So usually when you do a Google search, you'll see 2 or 3 results at the top, and they'll all say ad. That means somebody paid to put it there. I always go down to what are called organic search results, which are the ones that don't say ad. They're the ones that kind of earned their way there by being fast and being compelling and being upgraded. So if you pick a site on Google and you say, no, that's not for me, and you go back to Google, Google knows that. They know everything. But Google keeps track of that, and they say, you know what? These aren't good results if people are going and coming right back. So you've got to make sure that your site is compelling to keep them from leaving right away. Mm-hmm. Also, mobile first that we talked about, all those things come into play in Google search results. So there's a whole field now called SEO, search engine optimization. And the idea is we do everything we can to kiss Mr. Google and make sure that he's happy with our website. If it's not good on mobile, they're going to rate you down. If it's slow, they're going to rate you down. I mean, and it goes on and on. If you look on a website, if you look up at the very top of your browser, there are tabs across the top. Every site you visit has a little a tab at the top, and in that tab is a little tiny picture called a favicon. That comes into play. So that little picture tells you where you are on a site, and a lot of them are just generic because they never thought about it. There's also web clips that you can create so it comes up on someone's phone. All those things kind of come into play. Now, here's one thing I'll tell you, and I do this for a living. Nobody knows how Google's algorithm works. Nobody knows. I doubt that some of the people at Google even know how it works, but they keep changing it. They change it literally every few days. They change how Google comes up with its search results. And so, it's kind of like voodoo. Nobody really knows how it works, but you can take pretty good guesses at what they're doing. That's where this idea of monitoring your speed results and that kind of thing. This can move you up in the rankings. The other thing is, if you're a local business and you're really catering to a local crowd, that's a whole different ballgame. And you want to make sure that your location is very apparent, because Google is starting to take location into account when they issue their search results. So if you just say pizza, they're going to prioritize a pizza joint up the street versus a national pizza chain, because they know you're probably looking for something to eat right now, as opposed to being interested in the history of pepperoni or something. So the idea of local versus national or international is now one of the things they look for. So all those things come into play when you're optimizing your site for Google. And that's where SEO, what we're talking about with SEO.
Yeah, and I think if you're in our part of the world, you can type in nail salon near me, And they'll be like, oh yeah, Columbus. I'm like, what? I mean, come on. So the tools don't always serve us really well, and we have to know how to use them. So
Yes. And also,
we
if you do, I'm sorry, let me throw one more thing
yeah,
in
yeah.
here. If you use a VPN, a virtual private network, which I use, I'm in coffee shops much of the time, and I use a VPN to disguise where I am and who I am. It literally codes, for security reasons, codes everything that's leaving your computer. So I may be going through a computer in Cleveland, or I might be going through one in San Diego, and I don't know. I mean, when I log in, it randomizes what computer I'm at. So that's why a lot of times your search results are localized to someplace where you're not. So,
Right. So this is our half hour. I will have notes on what we've talked about today. I'm going to share that on our website, blufftonentrepreneurs.com. And I have to say, if I had been in charge of picking our website, our domain name, no one can spell entrepreneurs. I've got to tell you this. So it's really important, to talk to someone who has experience with websites. When you are doing it for the first time, it's really important to work with somebody who has some experience. And we as a group are going to continue to talk, but this is going to be the end of our recording. I hope that you'll join us for future BCE events. Our next one is going to be about hiring your first employee and how you do all the paperwork for that with the state and the federal government. If you think, oh, I got to hire this guy tomorrow, well, you have to remember to plan for how to do that. So if you have not been an employer before, this next event is going to be really fantastic. So again, thanks, Dave Treat of Thinking Small. It's been a great half hour, and hang on, folks. We will continue, but we're going to say goodbye to our video audience.
thanks, Paula.